Hi everyone, and thanks for joining me again for this latest episode of the 80-Hour Developer. So you guys have been busy since the last one. The homework was to go through episodes 3 through 10 of the Laracasts series on the PHP practitioner. And so there's about an hour, a little over an hour's worth of video in that, which means that I expect that you've spent at least 3 hours going through it all, rewatching anything that might have been confusing, and of course following along, typing out every little bit, pausing the screen so that you can type out everything as it appears on Jeff's screen and make sure that it runs for you the way that it runs on his machine. There's one section specifically where that might have become a bit of a pain in the butt, and that is of course when you were writing the HTML. Especially if you're not familiar with HTML, I understand that this can be a huge pain, and it might have felt like a lot of typing for stuff that you just really didn't understand. And to echo Jeff, that's normal. What I'm going to do today is to talk a little bit about some of the structure of HTML, give you just the most basic grounding so that you can continue to work in this course. And we'll finish off with a discussion about the separation of front end versus back end. Okay, so at its most basic level, the HTML structure looks like this. We create an HTML tag, and that tells our browser that this is an HTML document. Then we have a head, and we can put in here things like our title. And then we go down and we have a body. And in the body, we put everything that we want to actually show up in the page. So H1 stands for header size of 1. That's the biggest header that you can get. So it's fairly large text. Then we can use P, which means paragraph. This is a paragraph. Okay, there's only a couple of other things that really become super important in here. One is table. So table creates a table, right? It's like in Microsoft Word, or even think of a spreadsheet in Excel. You've got rows and columns. So in a table, the first thing we're going to do is we can saythead to create our header. And so this is row 1, row 2. Then we have a tbody. So you notice that we've got a lot of the same structure, right? Head and body. Head of the HTML, body of the HTML, head of the table, body of the table. We say tr for table row, and then td to define each cell of the table. So content for row 1 and content for row 2. Now you'll notice that as I'm typing this, as soon as I hit tab, PHP Storm is auto-completing for me and giving me these ending tags, which is really nice of it. It just makes life a lot easier. So I'm going to come out to my iTerm here, and we're going to go to our code directory. Okay, and we're going to start a server here. So I believe that's PHPS. And we can click on this. As a control click. There we go. So, of course, I didn't put this in my index.php. I put it in a view template file. So if I take this and put it in here and we reload, we can see we have, this is my title. This is my body, and it's big. It's an H1. You can see the difference in size between H1, H2, and H3. We have a paragraph, and then we have our table. Okay, so this is all super basic right now, but what you can see here is that we have, this is actually separated out into the different columns. Okay, and I should call this column. There we go. And for column. Okay, so hopefully this is a little bit of structure for you for HTML. Gives you a little bit of a sense of of what it's looking for. At the most basic, we need an HTML opening tag, we need a header opening tag and closing tag, then a body opening and closing tag, and we finish off with the HTML closing tag. Now, sometimes it's a lot to type out, and we don't want to do that. So what we can do is take advantage of something called a live template, and that's what lets us do things like this, and immediately have code generated for us. Okay? So now you just need to type in your title, and PHP Storm is taking care of it for us, and then you can get to work starting to write your body. The way that you do this, if it's not enabled for you by default, is you go to your preferences, and then in the editor section, pick Emmet HTML, and just make sure that this line is checked. And just for consistency, you should probably make sure that this line is checked as well, so that we're all working from the same program. Okay, so this allows us to do things like this, and immediately have all this code generated for us and save some time. So I hope this has been helpful, and I hope that this is helpful for you as you continue to write HTML. So let's take a look back at our summary here. You guys have done videos 3 to 10 in the PHP Practitioner, as we discussed, and this is the building blocks of all development. You can literally write almost any software by having a really good foundation in understanding these 5 concepts: variables, conditionals, booleans, arrays, and functions. Most programming is just using these tools in cool ways in order to solve problems. So I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you have learned most of what you need to about the bare basics of programming in order to do this. Now, of course, that being said, that's like saying, hey, you learned how to close your fist and throw your arm out, you can be a boxer. Technically correct, but there's still a long ways to go. So this is all incredibly important stuff. Make sure that you rewatch the videos in the Laracast series again if you need to. Understand it, be comfortable with it, do the homework that Jeff's suggesting, and you're going to find that the rest of it comes really quickly. So I think that this is probably a good place for us to stop. We've done our HTML Basics crash course. The only thing that I want to kind of finish off with here is a discussion about the front end and back end. We hear about this a lot in the development world. And really what it means is front end is what shows up in the browser, what shows up for your client to see. Back end is the work that we're doing in PHP or in other languages that the client doesn't see. It's what happens on our server, right? It's what happens behind the scenes in order to have this stuff show up. So in one of the lessons in the PHP Practitioner that you guys did, Jeff talked about the separation of concerns, separating out your view from your logic. And when you do this well, what you'll find is that it's really easy to outsource the development of front end to people who are really incredibly talented at it and allow you to focus on the back end. Now, if you like the front end, if you like designing web pages, if you are really good at that stuff, then of course you can do everything. You can be what's called a full stack developer. You can be really proud of the things that you design and develop. But if you're like me and you've always felt that you don't have that design sense or that artistic skill, don't worry, you can still be a great developer. You can focus on the logic and the back end side of it, and you're not going to be handicapped by not being able to make beautiful, visually stunning web pages. Okay? The separation of concerns means that we can work in a team and focus on the areas that we're good at and that we're enjoying, and allow others to focus on the areas that they're strong at. So Jeff talked a little bit about separation of concerns. You're going to see it over and over again in these videos and these trainings, and that's one of the reasons that it's so important, is that it allows you to create really high value work without having to do everything on your own and without making it almost impossible to plug in your stuff. Okay, so that's it for me for now. Continue working through the PHP Practitioner course. I will list out the exact videos that I expect you guys to watch in the comments for this, and I look forward to touching base shortly. the next few lessons that you're going to go through in here bring up some just incredibly important and useful topics. You're going to learn about databases, you're going to learn about classes, and then you're going to dive deep into interacting with your database so that your website, even if it just looks like this for now, can start collecting information, storing information, and displaying that information that you've collected and stored. This is what's going to allow you to set up things like authorization so that you can create sites that only your users have access to. It's going to allow you to keep track of what your users are saying or doing. And it really is the building block of creating interactive websites. And for most companies that you work with, for most high-value software that you create for companies, you're going to be relying heavily on the database. So the next few lectures in here are all incredibly important, and I look forward to recapping them with you shortly. Thanks so much, guys. Happy programming, and please let me know in the comments anything that you're struggling with, anything that you want to see in future videos as we continue to go through this. All right, thanks so much, and until next time, happy coding.